How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I'm your host, Rising Oblivion. Today we're going to be talking about what is the most likely Persona game to be ported and or remastered next. So we have Persona 4 Golden brought over, ported to the PC via Steam. Knowing that Sega is trying to branch out with their IPs, we know that they're trying to port more and more games over to new consoles, do more remasters, and push things out. So what this means for Atlus is that we might potentially see even more games being ported, more games being remastered, things like that. Just how we are getting Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remaster also being a thing coming out. It's already out in Japan, but it's not quite out here for us in the West. But the real question is, what is next for the Persona series? And I see a lot of people talking about certain games that they'd like to have, and certain people talking about the likelihood of them even being brought onto certain platforms and where it will actually end up. So we have to think of what game could it possibly be, and what platforms would they even try to bring it onto? Sega is trying to branch into just about everything now with their IPs, including Atlus, so we might be seeing a next Persona remaster brought onto just about anything. But with certain things, it's more than likely going to be Steam once again, and something like the PlayStation or the Switch, current day consoles, or something like Steam, just because they know how much success it brought them when they brought Persona 4 Golden onto Steam. So just from that success alone, we sort of already can see where the next lineup would be for another Persona port or another Persona remaster. So in recent years, there has been a big surge just in general from JRPGs and just Japanese developers in general, bringing a lot of their games over to stuff like Steam. Think about the Final Fantasy series. We see lots and lots of the Final Fantasy games now on Steam. A lot of them are ports, yes. Are they absolutely amazing or run just like they did on the other consoles and stuff that they came out on? Maybe not necessarily, but a lot of times they end up not being too bad. Final Fantasy X Remake, or not remake, but just remaster, I guess you could say. There's a difference now when it comes to actual remaster and remake in today's scope of things, but we have Final Fantasy X and X-2 on Steam. We have that on just about every platform now, which is a game that beforehand you used to have to go get a PS2 to actually play. So we more than likely are going to be seeing a lot of stuff coming out on brand new consoles or stuff like Steam on PC. So hopefully we don't see them be scattered around, but hopefully they stick to something like Steam, just seeing as how you can play most of the Final Fantasy games on Steam, and other JRPGs and Japanese developers bring a lot of the games over to Steam and sort of making that bridge when it actually comes to PC in general. If I was going to make a hunch, if I was going to make a guess, and this is not 100% true, not 100% accurate, we don't officially know this, but the next thing that I would probably think that they would do over at Atlus when it comes to just Persona in general, this doesn't count as, SMT or Catherine or anything else at all. There might be something like that first before we see a Persona game be remastered or ported, but with all the information we have in mind and the scope of where things have been going, I would be a betting man to see that they probably are going to try and port another one to Steam again. We might end up seeing something like Persona 1, 2, or 3 be brought over to Steam now. Persona 2 also having its two different versions. Who really know? We might see that something like that kind of be bundled together where you're getting both versions at the same time. It's kind of a continuation, kind of not. It's sort of its own thing. So we might end up seeing something like that in general. But a lot of people are really wanting to play some of these older classic games because it used to be so hard in order to actually play all of them. You have to get the older consoles in order to actually do them. With them using something like Steam, they can easily just port the games over, don't change it at all, do exactly what they did with Persona 4 Golden. It's very easy to do something like that. All the Final Fantasy games have done that. It's not too hard. Pretty much all you're having to do is change the aspect ratio and do something with the keyboard and mouse, and maybe allow something like controller support for the games, so it's a little bit easier to control them and change them. Some of the older games in the series were on different things, so it could be a little bit harder to actually do that, while something like Persona 4 Golden was pretty easy. We already have like a PlayStation button layout because of the PlayStation Vita, so it's not very hard for them to actually have to port something like that, or to even give it potential controller support for the future. It's not something that's very hard because those button layouts are there. it's already pretty easy for them to go onto. If it's something that's already on the PS3, it's not very hard to give it controller support. All you have to do now is, if you want to have a keyboard and mouse, just change some of the key bindings to the arrows and stuff. So from what I think, the easiest thing that they possibly could do is do a Persona 3 port. That's what I think the next move is, if we're talking about just ports or remasters in general, is something like a Persona 3 port. However, I think what they should do is have Persona 3, include the other female protagonists that you would get for the other versions, combine that together, allow them to do a game basically that's just going to be like Persona 3 Remaster. Similar to how we have Persona 5 Royal or Persona 4 Golden, sort of do a treatment like that. They add some extra characters, give it a full revamp, HD models now, similar to what we see at Persona 5. Give them the HD models. We know that they've made them because of the dancing games for Persona 3. The dancing game for Persona 3 already has the HD models. They have created the HD models. Those are already there. It's not too hard to also format the buttons for Persona 3. It's on the PS3 if you do some of the backwards compatibility downloads. That's why I'm saying that. It didn't actually release on the PS3, but it's able to be played on that because the button layout is just the same as PS2. So it has that easy button layout. There's HD models for the PS3. You know, we have all of the right stuff here to make a Persona 3 remaster sort of be a thing. You have the potential to have HD models. The button layout's not too bad, and it would be pretty cool to actually see this game run on a PC. Really easy download times. The aspect ratio is pretty nice. I think it'd be really cool to actually see that be ported over. And I know just from the fan base in general, tons and tons of people really want to see that game. I know a lot of people actually regard that as the best in the trio when it comes to Persona 3, 4, and 5. Some say that that's the best one. Personally, I've never had to play that. I've never gotten the chance to play it. I downloaded it on my PS3 to do the sort of backwards compatible thing, and I just wasn't able to really get into it just yet because I just really didn't like running it on such an old console. It's so much better to actually have that better aspect ratio and have it look not super great because it's just a port, but a little bit better because it's actually able to fit on a nice monitor, has a better refresh rate. Overall, it just ends up looking a little bit better. And I think, just like with Persona 4 Golden, I believe it actually tries to run the game at 60 frames if you're actually able to do that, which is pretty nice considering that the games more than likely are going to be running at 30, if not even lower than that. So even if it is just a port of Persona 3 put onto something like Steam, it still should technically run better and maybe even look a little bit better. You will be able to notice some of the, like, you know, defects in it. If you play Persona 4 Golden on Steam, you could tell the backgrounds look pretty damn bad. It's because you really weren't supposed to see that with much greater detail, with it expanded out, fitting the aspect ratio of modern TVs and monitors. That's why you kind of can notice that. We'll end up seeing things like that, but overall the game should technically run better, play a little bit better, feel a little bit better, but that's more of the realistic approach as to what we might end up getting. I think what most people would really love to see is the actual remaster with it. Same thing with Persona 4 Golden. That'd be my next guest, is something like that with a remaster of either Persona 3 or a remaster of Persona 4. Basing it just off of, at the end of the day, it being a company, so they need to make money. We're probably going to see something like that end up happening, even though I know so many people love the first two Persona games. I think just money-wise and what the fan base wants, we'll more than likely see Persona 3 or Persona 4 end up getting an HD remaster. I think that's what we'll end up seeing, similar to the Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne treatment. I think we're going to end up seeing something like that. They already have HD models for Persona 3 and Persona 4. They already have the better models just from the dancing games. So we know that they've done the dirty work when it actually comes to making those HD models. All they have to do now is fit it into the story again, possibly record some new voice lines, clean up some of the animations, stuff like that. And I don't think it would take a ton of time, but we have to keep in mind the scope of where Atlus is at and the amount of funding that they are getting from Sega. Judging off of how successful Persona 4 Golden was on Steam, there's a very good chance that Sega is very satisfied with what happened, and we are probably more than likely going to be seeing a more funded Atlus, I think. Something like that, I think, is what we'll end up seeing. More of a publisher support from Sega, trying to push more and more ports and more remasters, which is honestly really cool. And to me personally, I think that does a lot. I think that really is going to show just what Atlus can do and how much they have behind them. They have so many good IPs, so many good games. Even if we're not even talking about Persona in general, just all of their games in general are super good. And they have the P Studio team, so the P Studio team could be working on a remaster or a port or something like that, instead of having to give it to some of the other parts of Atlus. They can sort of portion some of their development time with the funding they're getting now from Sega to publish more things like ports or remakes, or they could do a third-party sort of deal, which might not be great because they might not know the intentional designs of what Atlus originally had went for. But then again, it was so long ago, do we even know whether or not the people who had made the original SNT or Persona games, do we even know if they're really technically still around, the people who were doing that? Maybe some of the higher ups are, but the actual people who did the groundworks for most of these games, they're more than likely either higher up at some other company or traded off somewhere else. But that's getting a little too deep into it. But for as far as we know, there's a very good chance of us seeing more things like this in the future. If not, maybe this is me just being a little bit of a optimist. We know that I think Atlus himself even did a poll asking if people wanted to see ports and remasters, and with a resounding yes, it was said. Hopefully that doesn't hinder the development time of something like Persona 6. It's going to be a long time until we even see that anyway, but hopefully they actually try to give us some ports that won't take too long when it actually hinders the Persona 6 development time. But I think that's going to be it for this video, guys. Like, comment, subscribe for more content. Let me know down below, what would you like? Anything from Atlus. What would you like to see ported over? What would you like to see mastered? Let me know down below. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.